The next topic I want to talk about is consultative or commoditized. And that essentially means, are you going to put your pricing on your website or are you not going to have pricing on your website? And there are a number of pros and cons to both of these structures, like whether or not you put your price on the website. Now, when we first started at Adventure Media, we had pricing on our website and we had it that way for, I would say, a good 2.5, 3 years. And I spent a ton of time coming up with my pricing schemes, and like our pricing was a fixed fee between brackets. I'm going to talk about that pricing structure, but like over here, it's like, let's weigh and discuss, should you put pre-packaged pricing on your site or should you not? And this is to me the breakdown between consultative or commoditized way you're viewing your agency. So a consultative agency or a consultative product is more where you're pricing the job, you're pricing the client, you're taking a look at the value you're bringing to the table. And you could be very flexible with how much you charge. And you shouldn't be worried about one client speaking to another client about they're charging me more for seemingly the same amount of work, because digital marketing is consultative in nature. It just is. Even if it does happen where two clients of yours happen to meet each other and one client's getting charged more or less, you could simply say, well, we're doing this work additional. I'm spending more time in competitive analysis. I'm doing 3 more rounds of optimizations each week, looking more deeply into the search terms report, or I'm testing automated bidding, or I'm using additional software, right? It's a consultative service. Like, that's just the case. You could have base pricing based on spend, and you could say, okay, like, the base package includes 1 call a month, and then the next one is 2 or 3 calls a month. The next package up is 4 calls a month. You might have different software that you'll use for certain accounts if they're paying you a certain amount, right? So you could configure your fees as you want. But I wrote a blog post, find it on Medium. I was forfeiting $740,000 of revenue a year because I had pricing on my site. And it was actually statistical analysis of the next 6 months or so where I took the pricing down and we were quoting jobs based on the client. We increased the minimum fee that we would take a client on for and things like that. But I would take that blog post with a grain of salt, because I do think there are pros to having a commoditized pricing scheme. People like upfront pricing. So when we were just starting out and we didn't really have much of a reputation, now we get referrals and we get a lot of inbound leads and things like that. And we have the luxury of being somewhat selective with clients we take on, but people just like upfront pricing. So if they're coming to the site and they see a pricing page, they're more likely to stick around on your site for longer. They're more likely to remember your site. And I do believe that having a commoditized pricing scheme on our website in the early days did help us. I'm not against having pricing on your site at all. You'll also most likely see an increase in conversion rate, meaning greater percentage of your website visitors will get in touch with you. When we get on a call with a client, like a lot of times it's like, well, what is the minimum fee to get involved with you guys and things like that. You'll probably see an increase in conversion rate. It also conveys transparency where you're saying, well, this is our pricing and there should be no fear of us pricing the job, or because you're a big company, we're going to charge you this. And there's only so much you could do with that anyway. But those are some of the pros of having upfront pricing. The downsides of upfront pricing is you can't price the job. That's the main downside. There's very little flexibility. And when I say pricing the job, by the way, I mean, like, if you get on the phone with a client and you like feel out that they have a larger budget and they're a more scalable product, you all of a sudden have like a whole broad range of things open to you. Bonus models, potential equity, which I'm going to talk about later on in rare situations. Just what you charge them as a base fee, what you're discounting, what add-ons are being thrown in. If you're going to charge them for web design, there's a lot of really cool stuff that opens up when you're no longer bound to your specific pricing on your website. And one more note that, a question people might have is, you might say, well, you could have pricing for your first 3 tiers and then you have like the contact us for the custom plan, which is what every single software company in the world has structured on their pricing pages. But that's not a solution, or that's not a true hybrid, because once you set your base pricing tiers, that's the context a client is going to expect. So if they contact you for your custom plan and they're spending $10,000 above or $5,000 above your top tier commoditized pre-packaged plan, there's only so much more you could charge them above that last tier, because you've already set expectations and you've already made it clear how you charge on your website for everybody to see. Another problem with the upfront pricing is you're held to a specific set of deliverables and standards. Like, your clients might always be coming back to the website and saying, like, maybe I should downgrade into the package where there's fewer keywords, or I should downgrade into the package where there's fewer monthly calls, right? Once you have something commoditized, the value of something becomes very rigidly rubricated and like organized in a person's mind. Where like, okay, I'm paying for this. I might not need that. I might not need that feature. And the work you're doing, which ideally should be value-based, ends up being considered feature-based, and they might be able to like remove a feature. A phone call where you're discussing the finances and you're discussing the client's progress and you're discussing new ideas and you're spending 3 hours just throwing around like cool marketing concepts for a certain client, like that's could be unbelievably valuable for a client, but they lose that when they come to perceive your products or the time you spend as features of a pricing plan. And that's what I mean when I say you'll be held to a specific set of deliverables and standards. So that's not great. I believe that there is a long-term negative revenue impact, like I just discussed. I think over time, as your company gets a little bit more mature, almost in all cases, you should consider taking down and removing the commoditized pricing schema. And you should, in most cases, I would even recommend starting without it. Like I said, there's no rule. There are good things about it, but I would recommend starting without it. And along those same notes, along that same line of reasoning, clients will always think, could I be paying less? Could I be getting better service if I paid more? If there's a pricing structure on the website where a client could always go back and review their proposal. So like, sure, there are deliverables in your proposal, but if the client goes back and sees there's a higher pricing tier, it always reaffirms in their mind that you might have more important clients that are paying you in that higher pricing tier. So like, they might be always nervous, like, oh, well, would I have gotten more attention if I was paying them more? Would I have gotten better performance from my campaigns if I had been paying more? And on the flip side, it's like, well, maybe I can get the same thing for paying less. And those are poisonous thoughts for clients to have. Like, you don't ever want them having those thoughts. And when you have a pricing structure, think about like software you have. Like, I'm subscribed to tons of software. And like, whenever I like look at the bill that comes, I'm like, always like, well, let's downgrade it. And like, we're getting all the basic same features, or, oh, we need to be able to add custom export options. So let's upgrade. So like, for a software, sure, like that's a fine attitude to have. But for a service, you really want to try to avoid your clients having that attitude as much as possible. So long story short, my basic suggestion is really try to push yourself towards consultative service structure as much as you can manage. And if you need to in the beginning, because you feel it'll increase conversion rate and you'll feel that it might competitively give you a competitive advantage, especially if you're trying to get clients through PPC ads, which are expensive, then I would say that there could be a lot of good in having upfront pricing, but realize that it comes with a good number of downsides.